So today we're going to be doing a replacement of a screen on a 2337 MacBook Air. And this is the unit right here. This is not a complex one. This is a nice simple one, but some people still may want to see the process, so I'm going to do it. And we're going to be changing the screen because the screen, let me just boot this thing up, has a crack in it. And you can see, as you can see, if we weren't getting too much reflection there, but it is a crack that is in the bottom corner here, and so you don't have much left of the screen real estate there, and obviously not ideal. You'd have to pipe it out to an external monitor in order to use it. Pretty useless this way. So we're going to replace the screen. And when I do the screen replacement on these, I do the whole assembly replacement. There are times when I may actually replace just the filament in the screen, only when it's rare and I can't get parts that will give me the whole display assembly. And there's even the odd time that I have replaced the T-Con board that's connected to the display, but that is even more rare, as most of the time that does not work. There's timing issues with the chipset inside the T-Con board and everything. So in this case, display assembly. So step one, we're going to just shut this down. Okay, once it's shut down, we'll flip it over and we'll take out each of the screws that hold the back plate on. So we'll find our screwdriver. Yeah, and I don't know why I'm not using my iFixit screwdrivers, but I have a couple of cheapies in front of me, so I'll use those. So we'll just start a nice, and a good idea for people that have not ever done this, you may want to keep the screws on a magnetic plate and in the same order they come out as. Some of them will be slightly different sized depending on which MacBook you're disassembling, and you don't want to mix them up. If you put long screws in where they shouldn't go, they can cause damage inside the computer, and if you put short ones where long ones go, it probably won't do anything. It won't thread in. So just keep them organized. Better to have them where they need to be. Alright, as you can see, there's some longer ones there. The other ones were little short ones. So, and once you do enough of these, you start to know what screws go where. But if you're just starting out in it, you're best just to try and keep everything organized. You know, with a lot of the iFixit toolkits, you get a little tray like this, and you can put your screws in separate compartments, things like that. So, man. Alright, so these lids are not as difficult to get off normally as the MacBook Pro ones. Usually they're not clipped as well. As you can see, there's no teeth on the back of these ones holding it in. Normally there is, and you would pull forward and up, as you've probably seen in one of my other videos. But in this case, you really don't need to do that. You can just go around with if you've got longer fingernails like I do at this moment, you can just give it a quick little pop up like that. And don't pry too heavy on these things, you'll bend the lid, but just give it a quick little snap like that and they come off. And that's it. So we're in. And it's just what I normally do is I flip this around because I'm going to be working on this end right here. So as you can see, this is pretty well a new laptop other than the cracked screen, so not dirty inside at all. We'll now go ahead and remove the battery plug. and gently unhook it with that little clip at the front. You just pop that up gently with a non-metallic object like this little splooger here, and then you can simply grab the little handle that comes up and gently wiggle and lift slightly. It'll pop off like that. Alright, so now we're going to start removing the other screws. I should probably use my good screwdriver for this, but let's just see here. We'll see which ones we get. Alright, so Torx T4. So you take your T4 and you remove these 4 screws, and they should be the same size. So go ahead and remove those and put them aside in a safe place. Okay, there's the 4 of those removed, and this is, by the way, the Wi-Fi antenna. So you will have to as well remove this tiny little Torx screw here, and these, carefully remove these clips. We'll go through that in a minute. So now we're going to remove the cover over the display connector. Alright, and using the spludger, you can actually pop out the pop off this connector here gently up, just connect it like that, and then you have these 2 screws, so you can remove those. In this case, it's a T4 that does all of them. In some cases, Apple's played games and they're not all T4, so that's where it can get a little frustrating when you're swapping heads back and forth on the screwdriver, and that is why I still keep some of these cheap screwdrivers around, because if I have them, I don't have to keep popping the screwdriver back and forth, the tips out of them, so it makes it a little easier. Okay, so next we're going to pop off the little shroud cover that goes over the Wi-Fi antenna bracket. And that's this little thing here. And then next we're going to take the spludger and we're going to go carefully with these. You're going to start back at near the back of the wires, go forward, wiggle until they pop off. You don't want to break these. These are, I mean, it can be replaced if you really want to spend a lot of time doing it, but nobody wants to do that. And so next, now that everything's disconnected here, along here, we need to work on the hinges. Like I said, it's one of the more easier repairs you'll ever get. So let's just do this. And I like to open the lid before I do it. Some people do not, but I do. We're going to be using a Torx T8H. So in this case I will actually swap it because I like this screwdriver better. It's a better quality. I feel more confident. These are fairly hefty screws, and the cheaper screwdrivers have a tendency to destroy the head of the screw if they're a little wore out. I know when you get displays, a lot of times they send you a small little toolkit with it. With the cheaper screwdrivers, they'll get the job done if you're careful. The problem is that if you try and retain those screwdrivers for future jobs, you may have a bit of an issue on your hands as far as the quality of the tip will become poor and can strip out the head of the screws. Not something you want to do. So I'm going to take all of these out but the one middle one. And the reason I do that is that so that I have the screws in enough to angle the screen a little bit more. I don't really need them tight, just snug to do this. And then I angle the screen back just a little bit more like that. And what we'll do now is go ahead and remove the Wi-Fi antenna. And to do that, you just got to get under it a little bit with the spludger. Spludger. I think I'm saying it. Doesn't sound like a very pleasant word. Spludger. I'll say spludger. It's just... There we go. Come on. There we go. So there is a bit of a stickiness to it to try and get it out. So there you go. So here we go. We'll take out the antenna and we'll set that aside. And now we can go ahead and angle the display back just a little bit farther than 90 degrees and remove the last two screws. I'm bracing the actual display on my knee. You can't really see it, but that's just so it doesn't fall forward or fall off or something. And because you don't want to go having this banging forward or whatever, because there's small little components right here on the logic board, and if this hinge is pushed forward, it can knock them off or damage it. So now there should be nothing. I'll just verify. There should be nothing holding the display from coming off, and we'll see that right now when we angle it even a little farther back and then slowly go forward and up, and the display is off, and there we have the display. So the old display is off, and I usually keep those displays around for a while. Sometimes I use them as testers, just if a logic board's not working or something, and I'm trying to verify if maybe the display is broken. There's some certain cases where that may be what you want to try and do. And what I'll do is I'll just plug in that, knowing that it's got a crack is fine. I know that it actually works other than the crack, so I'll be happy just to test it. So anyway, we have our new display here, and it is indeed the proper one. It is space gray A2337, and we will get that in place. Alright, so same process but in reverse. We have a nice clean new display. Apple logo is there, but it's covered because when they ship them, they actually, in this case, if you buy one certain places, they do not have a logo, so you got to watch what you get. But in this case, it does have a logo, and that's just a supplier that I am used to using, and I'm confident they're not going to ship me garbage. Let's hope I get a good display, because sometimes you get a bad one, but most often it's fine. So as you can see, the hinges are already positioned similar to the one I took off, so that's not a big deal for me to go in here. Mind you, you got to take this little assembly with the T-con board in the middle and hold it up while you put this into place, and then just find carefully where it drops down. Like I said before, watch carefully that you're not banging into the board here. Now you go get your two of your hinge screws, start them. You don't have to make them tight right now, because you will have to do most likely an alignment with the chassis. They give you a little bit of play with these things because they need to line up properly, or sometimes they just don't open and close smooth, and they won't feel smooth on the edges. There'll be a little overlap or sunk in a little bit or something. So, and it should be fairly easy to get this to drop back into place. So what we're going to do is the two bolts, the two hinge bolts that are near the antenna at the end, they are more difficult to get in later. So what we'll do is we'll get those started, but not necessarily tighten down right now. So we'll do the one here, just snugged up, not tight. And then here, not tightened, but let's leave it like that. So now you can work on getting this back in place, this little antenna. And how you do that, you just start from the front, and you push down a little bit on it until it seats correctly. And as you can see, that did not take much effort to get back into place perfectly. So once we have that in place and it's correct, we can go ahead and we can drop our T-con board back down. Alright. And get our T4 back here. And we can put that, start that screw. Okay, get the other one. And you might notice I am not tightening anything right now, as I just want to always make sure everything's back in place before I fully tighten things. And when I tighten them, of course, I don't mean torquing them down super tight. There's only so much torque you can put on these before bad things start to happen. So, and before I go any farther, I am going to, because I've noticed on this display, which is unusual, very unusual, but give it the benefit of the doubt here first, is that they do not have the little caps over top of these connectors, the camera connector and the display backlight connectors. They're usually on, and I'll show you that on the old display here. Just in case we're not familiar with it. So it'll be this little case right here, or that little cover, sorry, and that little cover. I have to move them over to this display, which is unusual. We don't have to usually do that. For some reason, I don't know, maybe they forgot them in manufacturing. I have no idea. Often we're left to go to China and get one. I have a feeling there's more in common with the real ones coming from China than there is with the ones that you get in North America, if they're not originally from China, because, as I said, I won't name names, but I've gotten displays from Canadian companies or American companies, and they don't even have a logo on them. And when you turn them on and you see the quality of display, it's questionable. Where are these things coming from? I don't know. So somebody's knocking them off. I won't name names, but I've been there. So alright, so now let's just try and get this lined up so we can get that in wherever my little tweezers went. Okay. Alright. Yeah, this adds a bit more complexity to the job, but not really. It's just a little bit more time than it normally would take. Got to get the covers back on there, or when you do Okay. You want to make sure it's as close to the original product as you can get. No messing around. Okay. So we'll give those a little, make sure they're ready to go. So I always just give 1, 2, 3, 4 with a good little bit of torque, but not overly large amount. I just give it a couple of good turns and check it. Just back off and check it, like back off pressure and apply pressure several times. I do it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when I say pressure, I don't mean a ton of it. And I always check everything twice, because you don't want to give it back to the customer and have a screw out come out inside or anything like that. But you'll get to know what the right torque by hand is as you do these jobs. So okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to put in our other 4 screws here, and that we'll start with these. Okay. Okay. So here is the same thing, like you just and I'll go through them one more time until I'm feeling confident they're perfect. Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, next I'm going to recheck the torque on these ones, because remember, I did not put those tight yet. Now I can go ahead and put on the plug for the display, that connector, and then I can go ahead and put on the lid for that connector, cover, bracket, lid, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. And I know that there's another thing you got to watch here, is that the screws, if you don't have the best screwdrivers or they're not magnetic enough and you lose one of these little screws, if you have carpet, or well, if you have anything, floor or carpet, you're probably not finding it. So just try not to, and watch, I've jinxed myself. No, not yet, but just try not to lose your screws. Most people do not have replacement ones. Thankfully I do, but I still don't want to lose them. And that's perfect. And for some reason, there you go. We're gonna hook up the antenna first because I don't want to change that bit again and again and again and again. So anyway, and that's what I was explaining before. Like, it's good if you don't have to keep replacing the bit on your screwdriver, because it's kind of a pain in the ass to keep doing that. There you go. Be very gentle putting these back on too, because these little connectors do not take much to break. And if you've ever done this job and you've broken one, you know what I'm talking about. I've had to replace them, and it's not fun. It's not really difficult, it's just time consuming. There you go. Both of them are in, firmly attached. Back to the little retaining clip, or cover, plate, whatever you want to call it. Alright, that's going to give me grief. Probably not. Come on. Another thing is, with the screwdrivers, always be very careful that you don't slip off of the component or the screw and hit components. That can be very bad, which we always have to be mindful of that. So, alright, so now back to the T8H. Put in these last couple of screws, and at this point you still don't want to tighten them down. I'm going to check the alignment first. So when I say alignment, I mean when you close the hinge, you want the edges on the back to be flush with the edges on the back of the laptop. Front the same, sides, whatever. It all has to line up right. And they do allow a little bit of play here because each one is slightly different. So you just want to line that up. If we get lucky, it'd be a miracle. And that's pretty freaking close. So what I'm saying is, when you feel here, you shouldn't feel it rising or lowering. It should be pretty much flush with your fingers. So now, what we'll do is we'll loosen them all right off. Don't take them out, just loosen them off so that there's lots of wiggle room with the display. The display is on magnets, so just what I would do is slide it around. You'll see that if you move around here with the finger in the front of the frame and pushing on the back of the frame until you get it as close as you can get it to perfect, which, and they may never ever be 100% perfect, but you can try and get it as close as possible. And I don't know, that's pretty close. No. Getting pretty close. So I'm just going to tighten the center one when I think it's close. That's pretty close. That's very close. So I'm just going to tighten the center. And I'm going to check it all around. Front feels good. We want that to be as close to factory fit as possible. Okay, so check it. This feels pretty good, but and then the open and close test too, because sometimes it may pinch if it's not right. Alright, that seems pretty good. I mean, you can hear the crackling. The crackling you're hearing is all the protective plastic. So I think that's good. That's pretty close. So what I'm going to do is torque down these screws now. And yes, these ones do need a bit of torque. Not like the other ones. These ones are very, very tough screws, and they're into the chassis well. I mean, don't go completely bananas, but make sure they're well firmed up. Like, you want these good and tight. Because, I mean, you can put some Loctite on, blue Loctite on them if you really want them to, you know, stay, but I don't usually do that. I think on the factory, sometimes they do it. I haven't seen it much on the newer ones, as much as they used to do on the older ones. So I just really give these a good tighten. And don't slip off and hit anything, that's all. Right. And there. And there. And that should be it. So we've tightened everything up. And what do we have to do now? Put in the battery. Just connect the battery. So we just want to pull this little clip back. Make sure you're over the connector evenly. There's always the possibility you're not going on even, and you can bend something or break something. So you do not want to do that. I got the worst lighting in the world right now. Okay. And sometimes it goes in real easy, and sometimes it doesn't want to go in at all. But you just got to be patient, and I may turn it just a little, just to get an angle on here. I wish that clip would stay up out of the way while I'm doing this. Well, almost. I'm not ever pushing down hard on it. I'm being very gentle. That's why you just don't want to break a connector. That's more work than you want to have to do. Okay, and then once you got it firmly down, just check it side to side. Then pop the little, until it clicks. You pop that little clip down, retaining clip down to hold it in place. The laptop should be okay now. And I have like a clean brush here. I just always like to, if I see anything at all, I just like to get it out of there. Always nicer when it doesn't look like anybody's been in here. And alright, so let's put the back on. And I won't screw it down yet, but I will put the back on, and then I will attempt to boot up the laptop. So we'll put this just on there like this for now. And this laptop's going to need a good cleaning because it's a little dirty. Alright. Alright. It's good. And we'll plug it in. And voila. We have Apple logo. Let's just verify the screen is a good one. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Alrighty. So there you go. We have a new screen installed on a A2337 2013-inch MacBook. And that is exactly how that process is done. Like I said, a very simple and easy repair. Sometimes the hardest part of that is the locating the display. But if you have a supplier or somebody that you can trust to give you good screens, then that's the ticket there. So anyway, Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you learned something from it. On to the next video. Thank you.